Make every night a wonderful journey, no matter where you are. Good night, sweet dreams. The first story, Cats. Robert was convinced that his cat was trying to kill him. After using the litter box, Mr. Cuddles kicks the litter round, leaving a big gaping hole in the middle of the box. Robert was positive that Mr. Cuddles was practicing body burial. Robert also occasionally woke up on the sofa after his afternoon nap to find Mr. Cuddles kneading about on his body. Robert was certain that this was not a display of affection, but a clever technique in which Mr. Cuddles' very subtlety checked his internal organs for weaknesses. Cuddles seemed to have settled on the pancreas. Robert stopped having afternoon naps, and so Robert went through every day and every night in fear that his cat would come out of the darkness and suddenly disembody him. For some of the cat medicine men had mysterious powers and could shape-shift into anything. Robert was also sure that there existed a secret ring of cat coziest bent on overthrowing humankind via faked cuteness and disarming me was. He dubbed these vials cut coziest. Robert was not good at names. Robert would have killed Mr. Cuddles himself, if not in fear of the retribution that he would bring unto himself from the crazed cult of coziest, who wouldn't outwardly claw themselves into his house and lay giant traps everywhere, which, Robert speculated, they would use out of love for cruel irony. He tried to intimidate Mr. Cuddles by goading him into a staring competition, but he always lost. Mr. Cuddles never blinked those damned cat eyes, staring straight at him, straight down into his soul. They seemed to know everything about him. They seemed to be taunting him. Robert took a lot of amphetamines. They not only allowed him to stay awake against the hallowed forces of evil, they also gave unto him knowledge about the cats and their plan. It was as if some higher being was giving him help. He was very, very grateful towards this higher being. He often asked how he could ever repay him. The conversation usually went something like this: Robert, O great, magnificent God of all, however can I repay you? Higher being, mo pills. Robert, if you do insist, O divine master. And so Robert took quite a few pills, secure in the knowledge that if the cat ever encroached upon his personal safety, the higher being would smack it to death, probably with a large baseball bat. However, one day, the higher being dissipated, gone. Robert was extremely uneasy. He assumed that the cats had kidnapped the higher being using some sort of advanced technology. Coincidentally, slightly before this, he also ran out of pills. It was no good. Robert was addicted to the amphetamines. He went to his usual dealer, Jacob, down the street, below the great oak tree. Jacob, while standing over a bag, asked him what the problem was. No problem, said Robert. Well, Jacob said, your eyes almost look like that of a cat's, and your mustache looks strange, almost as if it's turning into cat whiskers. Robert ran all the way back home. Robert couldn't find a mirror. The only mirror he had was smashed by Mr. Cuddles a week ago, and even as Robert ran around the house, looking for a mirror, Mr. Cuddles followed him with what appeared to be a ghost of a smirk on his face. Robert finally found a piece of jagged glass which had fallen off from the smashed mirror. Yes, he thought as he stared hard at the glass, those do look like cat eyes, and it looks as if I'm growing whiskers. I'm growing into a cat. Suddenly, in the glass flashed the image of Mr. Cuddles. Robert looked behind him and screamed. Mr. Cuddles was right behind him, staring at him, as if saying, "You're one of us. You're one of us." Robert took the piece of jagged glass and slashed open his own throat. Mr. Cuddles walked along the street and went underneath the great oak tree, where he waited for a bit until a black cat came along. They both nodded and meowed to each other, conversing for a while, until, seemingly agreeing on something, they parted ways. Mr. Cuddles went down the street to find a new owner, while the black cat looked around for a while. Then, having made sure the street was empty, he closed his eyes and concentrated, causing his features to start morphing. His posture grew more upright, his fur disappeared, his eyes grew more angular, his nose became more defined, his whiskers shrank inwards, and slowly his features began to resemble that of a particular drug dealer whose body was found in the gutter a week ago. A man named Jacob. He took a packet of amphetamines out of his pocket and grinned. This story is credited to a person called Necronofore. The second story, The Diary of Mr. Welldone. Hello, I am Mr. Welldone. I watched the copulation which conceived you, and I screamed in horror. I saw you birthed like a hatched parasite, hairless and gagging, and I grit my teeth in hatred, sliding them over each other again, and again, and then again and again, until they were flat and smooth. I will watch you wither and grow old, as your body congeals and the weight of your years pulls your flesh from your body. I will grin and snicker, laugh and laugh. I will see your desiccated corpse, pumped full of superficial chemicals, entered into the dirt to feed the eyeless, subterranean creatures of the earth. I will howl, because I know where you are going. I know where you are going. Know where you are going. I know the secrets of this earth, as I knew the secrets of the one before it. I will bring about the end, and you cannot stop me. You read these tales, and you do not know that with each one you read, with each one you create and recreate, with each one you retell, with each one you claim ownership of, you beckon the end. For there will be some among you who will try to verify these tales. You will seek them out. Those that do so with passion will find that many of them are falsehoods, but some will be harrowing at the very least. Others will leave you scarred for the rest of your fleeting days, and others still will leave you stripped of your flesh, and that flesh will be used to build more, and more, and more tales, twisted and stretched, to cry out to more curious individuals. I will smile, my teeth clenching together tightly, until one cracks with a satisfying pop, my eyes unblinking, watching everything fall into place, wide and empty, weeping and shriveling with delicious, protracted agony. I am so excited, so very excited. Even as you read this, some among you are emboldened. The sick part of you, which lusts for the end, whisper into your mind, making you want to see the horror, the pain, the blood, and the death. You want to see it. You want to see what lies hidden in the dark, beyond sight, smell, taste, hearing, and touch. Come and see. I will show you such wonderful things. Hello? It is not what you cannot see in the dark that you fear. It seems the masses have comforted themselves with the trite statement, people fear the unknown. Humanity finds a strange comfort in the statement, if people did indeed fear the unknown. This statement would be akin to locking eyes and spirit with that soul-rending horror which lurks unseen in the back of every human's mind. No, it is not what you cannot see in the dark that you fear. It is what you will see if you gaze long and hard into it. You will see that thing you know you will see. You will attempt to assuage that sting of fear in your mind by numbly assuring yourself that it is simply a figment of the rampant faculties of the subconscious. It is not. Yes, we fear the dark for a reason. The reason is not what you think it is. Hello. Many fellows, in their markedly less than infinite wisdom, choose to prove their gender and sexual orientation by seeking out a locale rumored to be frequented with events of the supernatural. What a loathsome and paradoxical term, supernatural. How can a thing be above nature when it is naturally occurring? I digress. Many such brave souls, who set out in search of the nocturnal thrills of the unknown, find that there is little to fear, despite the cold sweat they feel, and choose to take this evidence as the answer to whether or not the supernatural exists in our shared perception of the world. What fools! Indeed, if one steels themselves overmuch, such an individual may find that he will never see anything beyond the mundane. It is those that embrace their fear that find much more startling evidence supporting the possibility of earthly entities and energies beyond our current understanding. Fear is more than a biological warning to impending danger. It is a sense, with little difference than the 5 most people are familiar with. To ignore one's fear is to close one's eyes to such secrets possessed of beauty beyond most mortals' imagination, and so I impart this advice upon those who wish to confirm the existence of the supernatural. Exalt yourself in your fear. Stoke its fires and seek out the darkness. You will see such wonderful things. Hello. Of all of the most wonderful things to be seen in this world, the best of them lay in the periphery of the worldly, the superficial, the mundane, the worthless, the duplicitous, wretched, horrid, loathsome, fated, despicable, sickening, vapid reality which humanity clings to. Pardon me, but in the corners of the eye lay unknown gems amidst the refuse, those flitting shapes humanity unconsciously assigns to the readily explainable, acceptable normalities of the social world which haunt us, leaving us with a vague fear that begs our eyes to close so very tightly when the lights are put down for an evening's rest, and not to open again until the reassuring light of the morning dispels the possibilities of the darkness. What waste, what ridiculousness! Open your eyes and use the wondrous capabilities of this fantastic organ as you goes about your evening hygienic rituals. I suggest you pay indirect attention to the cold black of the hallways waiting outside the door. Wait for the inevitable thing out of place with the characteristic stillness of the night, swiftly passing by to unknown destinations. But do not acknowledge it. Do not. Some things are best only seen and not interacted with in other ways, for in seeing that which believes itself unseen, awareness comes with the most severe of consequences. Oh yes, so severe. Do behave, look, but do not touch, or speak or taste. Only then, perhaps, will you hear, faintly on the first occasion, but on every occasion thereafter impossible to ignore, even as they stand, now so clearly, leering at you from the darkest corners of your safest, most sacred havens. Do not acknowledge their presence. Be content to observe. Yes, content. Such contentedness is the only barrier against the predationess. If you can do this, if one can stand the temptations of the darkness and control one's primordial self, perhaps then you will be prepared for more, much more. Hello, the tales of strange creatures, occurrences, and sightings persist from the first days of man until today. To describe them out of hand is foolishness, as is to believe blindly. But for those that seek out the dark, you will see horrors which will shatter your human mind. There was once a time when man understood his place in the universe. But things change, always changing though. Even in recent history, there have been those that have understood. However, such individuals' wise insight is turned to examine the mundanity of nature rather than its unexplainable qualities. What waste? The book does not understand, will never understand. There is only fear and blind denial. Even when faced with all truths, the human mind shuts itself. Often the person attempts desperately to find any mundane explanation possible to retain sanity. Sanity, a creature wholly wrought of comparison and worthless society. Only those bold enough to search in the dark, blind in senses, will see the old truths. You will see, and you will understand your place. You will experience feelings so powerful and varied that you will be unable to assign words to describe the experience, and then it will all end. Hello. Will one be simultaneously amused and disgusted? Apparently so. Humanity disgusts me for its constant squabbling for little pieces of paper, hierarchical conflicts for power that exists only in the imaginations of those involved, and the pointless use of lives in order to sustain nothing but a paltry level of comfort. I am sickened. And yet, I am also entertained. It is like watching some cruel joke unfold. I sit, waiting for one among you to ascend to greater powers than known to the bulk of humanity. But so few are willing to aspire, so full of yourselves, so sure that you already know the workings of the universe. You rob yourselves of the greatest of mysteries. I cannot wait. I cannot wait. I cannot wait to see it all end. I cannot wait to watch you scream and suffer. A magnificent din of flesh being stripped from bone, which is then made to dance to the whims of the most horrifying destruction the sentient portion of the universe has borne witness to. It will be a wonderful taste of vengeance for having been subjected to your monotony. Yet, I still yearn for even one among you to attain the eyes with which to see the all of the cosmos. But I also yearn to pluck your organs from their positions of safe functioning simply to relish the expression of pain and terror on your faces. I wonder if I shall ever be so divided. I wonder what I shall do when such divisions cease. I cannot wait. The third story, 3620. Hello, my name is Ted Slobogan. I used to be the landlord of a set of average apartment rooms on the outskirts of New York City. Skyscraper housing comes at relatively cheap rates these days, so I get to meet lots of people you know. Immigrants, young families, and elderly individuals for over 25 years. I got to know just about all of my tenants on the 36th floor, except for one. The room's registry and boarding contract both say that a woman lives in room 3620. I've never laid eyes on her in my life. When I took this job, the old man I was replacing was going to retire or something. I never quite understood the reason, but above all he stressed one thing: never talk to the woman in 3620. Further attempts on my part to elicit some explanation were dismissed with silence. I should also that most tenants didn't want to be approached by me anyway. Usually I had to ask for overdue payments or fulfill a maintenance request for some busted water pipes or electrical outages. That is absolutely reasonable. It's surprising how nobody had condemned the rotten building already, but during my entire time there, I never had any requests from 3620. She must have been one heck of a DIY person. I used to think, and thanks to the old landlord, I had a spare key in order to enter every tenant's room on the floor, except 3620. The man who turned the job over to me also gave me peculiar instructions for receiving her payments, and only one day of the year, the lady in 3620 would pay her rent. I don't charge by the year for anybody else. The previous landlord warned that I could not be awake until the sun rose. On one specific day, each year walking down the hallway at the end, sure enough I would find a crisp check denoted for 1 year's payment in my name. Apparently, the woman's name was Marge Prairie, but I prefer calling her 3620. It came to pass, as time went by, my curiosity wore into the better of me. I started by dialing the number of the old landlord, hoping that at least somebody would answer and resolve this thing altogether. He didn't answer, and when I called again later, I got a reply from a nursing home receptionist stating that he died years ago. No next of kin, no worldly possessions left behind under this context. It certainly sounded strange enough, but things like that happen, I thought. I gave my thanks and hung up. Against my better judgment, I decided to press onward now. Looking back in hindsight, I realize what a stupid mistake I made. I made the investment of installing one video camera to record the hallway where 3620 would enter and exit her room. The heater that runs through this place is composed of a series of air ducts passing over the hallway. I drilled a hole into the duct, coming out near a grate in the wall. At the end of the hallway next to room 3620, I placed the camera ends through this hole and fed the cord back up through the duct and into my own room, where I attached it to my computer. If you think this seems a little obsessive, even borderline unethical, how do you think I thought of it all? Have you ever had such an insatiable curiosity that would not abate until you did something to stop it? Before this, I could swear to you my complete honesty and discreetness in others' affairs. But if you've done this job for 25 years like I had, some things become so mysterious that you have no choice but to look into them. I turned on the camera, planning to stay up all night. Perhaps 3620 was the kind of person who only leaves their room at night. Perhaps she worked the graveyard shift over in Ridgefield. Lots of people have jobs at all times of the night. If you're lucky enough to get a job, maybe she was just a recluse who didn't like people. So she chose a rickety apartment on the 36th floor on the outskirts of the city to try to escape from it all. These were my speculations at the time. If only I had restrained my imagination to this point. As I watched the tape from my computer in my room, nothing happened throughout the night. No noise, no sound of voices, or television, or the creaking of floorboards, nothing. So I decided to stay up late the following night, keeping a vigilant eye on any activity. Again, nothing happened. It was only until I had repeated this for 8 nights in a row that I truly started to feel spooked. Did this person have food? Water? Maybe she hurt herself, and for over a week has been unable to leave the room or ask for help. It was then that I decided to stop messing around when she would place her check outside her door. I would not be sleeping in my room and waiting. It was early morning, the 6th of June, when I turned the camera on. Sitting down at my desk, I watched my computer to see any traces of movement. Looking at the clock, it was 5:30. The sun had not risen yet. My heart pounded in my chest, and my eyes strained to see in the darkness of the hallway through the air grate. Outside, the tiniest streaks of navy blue began to push back the black of night, followed by a lavender tint, and then a lighter shade of blue. Room 3620 remained silent and loving. I was about to walk to her room myself and demand the year's payment, when something extraordinary happened to this day. I cannot find words to explain it. A shadowy figure seemed to glide down the hallway, more ethereal than human, like it levitated across the rooms until it stopped outside of room 3620. If the thing had a face, I'd say that it turned and looked right in the direction of the camera. What happened next I cannot describe. All I know is that a shrill ringing sound came from the camera, and then it too appeared to levitate within the air duct. Then the screen crackled and buzzed. All video and audio from the camera was rendered useless. After the thing evidently destroyed the camera, I felt a great chill run down my neck. Panicking, I leapt out of my chair and bolted to the doorway and burst out of the room and into the hallway. Immediately I felt a blast of cold air sweep over me, and an instant later it ended sprinting down the hallway. I saw room 3620 normal like before, but with a crisp check lying neatly at the foot of the doorway. I rapped my knuckles against the door. Open up, I yelled, not really caring whether or not the other tenants were still sleeping. Open up, I said. Looking back, I almost expected it to, but the door opened. 3620 opened the door. The woman of room 3620, Marge Prairie, by the name on the check, met my glance. Her appearance has become etched into my memory. She was the oldest looking woman I had ever seen. She couldn't have stood above 5 feet tall. Her wispy grey hair tied into a bun, hunched over with those emaciated, sunken eyes, those wrinkled, manic eyes and nearly visible cheekbones. She was wearing a worn, white t-shirt with a grey cardigan, and baggy grey pajama pants. Her nails were chipped. Her room looked to be in no better condition. She broke the silence. Would you like to come in? She turned around, gesturing for me to go inside. I should have turned around and walked away, turned around and quit my job right then and there. But curiosity is a strange thing. Sometimes the more you feed it, the more it wants of you. Your video camera might have been damaged, she sighed, lying down on a tattered and torn couch. You've known about it, I replied. Speechless, the air inside the room smelled like a morgue, like it had been bottled up in there for ages. Her voice cracked. Yes, I knew. Come, sit down and see what I do for a living. She motioned for me to sit down. I decided to stand. It didn't seem to matter to her anyway. She got up and rummaged through some junk in a pile of the room and pulled out an artist's easel. Then she gathered some canvases that she had finished and stuck them on the table. Reading the expression on my face, she answered, Why not? Does it seem so impossible? Yes, Mrs. Lobo Gin. I am a painter, an artist in fact. Would you like to see my work? I wanted to see her work, so I cautiously nodded. She placed the first canvas onto the easel. Go ahead, guess. Her voice came out in a dry echo from the expertise behind the brush-strokes up and oil glazes. The piece could stand its own against the professionals. It was a picture of two very old buildings, jutting out among a skyline of other buildings and smaller skyscrapers. It was a picture that she could have painted by just looking out the window. She could tell that I knew what it was. She replaced that canvas with the next one, This next painting appeared to be the inside of a theater. She had painted the audience in highly formal and dignified clothing. The focal point of the painting was a man with a full beard sitting in a box above the audience, wearing a suit, gloves, and top hat. This was one of her favorite works, she mentioned. The third painting she showed me was a beautiful rendering of the Empire State Building. Amazed by the clarity of the work, I admitted that I didn't understand why she was showing me this particular painting. Her answer will remain with me forever. She said he will, feeling more than uncomfortable having barged into this strange woman's room with so many unanswered questions. I headed for the doorway to leave. I don't know why, of all questions, this came to mind, but I asked her, "Is your name Marjorie?" It almost looked like her mouth contorted into a smile. There was a long pause, and then she stated, "No. But I see you've met my friend." I wanted to ask her more, to ask her why she lived alone, secluded for years, or why she never sent maintenance requests or talked to anyone or left room 3620. But she continued, "There are some things in life that are better left unanswered. You should have listened to what the last landlord warned. You will remember this day. But when you have questions, don't try to find the answers." I grabbed the check and left the room as fast as I could, running down the hallway. I never looked back, but I bet if I did, I might have seen her peering out of the doorway, the damned emaciated, hunched old woman. When I awoke later that day, there were people banging their fists against my door. Alarmed, I realized that half of the building had been turned away from its base. The skyscraper, dozens of stories tall, had collapsed on one side, where I could literally see the daylight and the sun from beyond the wreckage. How in the world did I sleep through that? Later, I would learn that one of the building's primary support beams had given way at the base of the building. Years of wear, along with a lack of safety inspections and renovations, had caused living conditions to become unsafe. Engineers were baffled for months, trying to figure out why only half the skyscraper collapsed, leaving the other half nearly entirely undamaged. But I know the true reason. While paramedics did the best they could that morning, sifting through the demolished remnants of brick, glass, wood, and debris, they discovered many bodies. You probably saw footage of this tragedy on the news. Anyway, to their surprise, they found a stash of old paintings and artwork left almost intact, despite falling dozens of stories as part of the wreckage. I managed to get a glance at one of the paintings before police and security closed off the area's citizens. The painting was a beautifully crafted piece of only half of this very building, the half that became demolished. Weeks afterward, nobody ever found the body of the old woman who created those paintings. In fact, on the registry of tenants in the room, there was no record of anyone ever staying in the room 3620. And when I was allowed to go back up to my apartment room, the check addressed from Marjorie had vanished. No history of a depositor of that name has shown up in any checking account since. There are some things that just can't be explained. I've learned to appreciate and accept the fact that some things don't have answers to them. Don't go looking for them, no matter how strange they may be. That's my advice to you.